Okay. Okay. Hi, Sanjeev. Momita is also a new
Sir, good
student.
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Hi, Sanjeev.
Sir,
Sir,
good
you are
afternoon.
also.
Are we on, Firoz?
Yes, sir, you are
Okay.
also.
Okay. There is a new student, Xiaomi 22001. If you can, rename yourself into your actual name, it will be easy to address. Momita, you are also a new student. All those people, I just gave an instruction that if you're a new student, you're coming for the first time, remember in this class, at any moment of time while I'm doing the presentation, you can stop me to add something on your own or to ask a question. uh, the class that way becomes much more interactive with various people, adding their, knowledge and information, and it becomes much easier to go through the class. Okay. Xiaomi, Naomi, whatever that, however you pronounce. Okay, so let's start with the people joining. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. So we are talking about ethnicity. In fact, you know, as I've been saying in this class earlier, this whole migration and diaspora, PG course is a interdisciplinary course. It has got a lot of sociology. It's got a lot of political science. It's got humanities. It's got various subjects, psychology. It's an interdisciplinary science and becomes very interesting. In fact, this whole concept of ethnicity, sub-ethnicity, and all these social economic concepts that we are doing in this thing. This is block, I think, six socio-economic, parameters or socio-economic markers. It's very much in the line of sociology, and the reason why we need to understand sociology is we need to understand how society functions to be able to understand then how migration and diaspora functions. Because human beings, even though seem to be simple on the face of it, are much more complex in terms of groups, in terms of group dynamics, in terms of identity, and the whole concept of human identity is a very complex thing because our identities keep on varying. The way we function as an individual and the way we function in groups are marked different, and it keeps changing. And there's a large component of politics which comes in the whole scenario. In fact, I always tell my undergrad and grad students whom I teach that in a lot of households we are told that politics is bad, but politics is an essence of human beings. It's not just human beings, it's in any animal kingdom there is a certain amount of politics which happen as to why a particular animal is does not fit in a group, how groups are formed. If you see, all the animal kingdom comes in a group. So let's look at ethnicity and sub-ethnicity as markers of group identity. And also understand the fact, people who are joining for the first time, I typically pick up content from the self-learning modules that IGNU will have sent to you or will send to you. A lot of you may not have got the SLMs from IGNU. Please understand, you can always, most of these SLMs are available online. You can download them. In case you need the presentation that I'm presenting today, you can send me a mail on my mail ID, which I'm putting in the chat. I can send you the PPT. So you can chat, you can connect with me on email. That's my email ID. I am not on WhatsApp and I'm not on your WhatsApp group. I'm on Signal and Telegram. In case you want to connect with me, I'm on Signal and Telegram messaging app. That's my number that I've shared on the chat. So you can see that. So, for example, in today's presentation, I picked up, stuff which was outside the SLM, because a lot of times when I feel that the SLM is either not explaining properly or there should be more, I pick up stuff from outside. So we need to know the meaning and concepts of ethnicity and sub-ethnicity. Ethnicity, sub-ethnicity, and group identity. These are all group identities. Approaches to look at ethnicity, difference between ethnicity, race, and nationality. And over a period of time that I've been taking this class, we have talked about nationality, how nationality comes in, how nationality affects diaspora, how various things come and affect diaspora or diaspora's connection with the home country or the host country, know the interlinkages between ethnic identity and diaspora. So that's our objectives. As I keep telling you, identity is a very important marker for human beings. Identities are fluid. More often than not, we look at basic identities in terms of sex, identity in terms of religion, identity in terms of nationality. But there are many more identity as played. Identity of gender. There's a difference between gender and sex. So group identity is an individual consciousness that he, she belongs to a certain groups and emotionally attached to a group. Remember, human being is a social animal. We tend to live in groups, we tend to live in communities, we tend to live in societies. And more often than not, right from the history of humankind, there are always this concept of we versus others. And this we versus others is how the identity politics come into play. Markers of the group identity are the features on the basis of which people define positions on a social group. Markers are also not fixed and keep on changing. Things keep on changing. One basic element of humankind is the story of human being is a story of migration, and B, our identities keep on moving. They are fluid. Ethnicity is a highly debated concept in social sciences. Like other group identities, also defined in terms of we and other binary. Even though we and other becomes more like a stereotype, but the human beings function like that. I am not like that. When we make that statement, it is we versus others. It has a political, social, cultural, and psychological dimension. Every time, one makes a statement, I'm not like that, clearly shows that I am different from others. In general, ethnic groups are understood as a number of people who share common cultural and biological features. Let's see this further. There are scholars who believe that ethnicity is a social construct. Origin of ethnic groups has several sources. Migration is one of the sources. Sub-ethnic groups are categories that have fallen apart from larger ethnic groups. We'll do a little bit in detail as we go along. Anthropologists and others sought to deconstruct, suggesting not only and also we need to understand there is nothing called a homogeneity in terms of people or groups. Religions are also not homogeneous, castes are not homogeneous, nationalities are not homogeneous. That division happens based on the groups that form, for example, groups that form a nation. And how do these groups come together? What are their cultural construct? How do they look themselves? There is a politics which is at play. And more often than not, whenever I'm making a definition or I'm quoting something, I will tell who is telling this. I keep repeating this in academics and scholarly pursuit. There is nothing called right and wrong, good or bad. Scholars themselves are ideologically aligned. Ideology is a political thought. Again, these are perspectives. Do not look at scholarly pursuits in terms of this or that. These are perspectives. You figure out what is right and wrong. I will give you various perspectives. There are concepts like race and nation, which are often used interchangeably with ethnicity. Ethnicity, race, and nation are different from each other, influence and get influenced by each other. Inevitably, also, we will see various concepts. For example, diasporas influence the home politics as well as host politics, and in turn, get influenced by home and host politics. There is a mutual give and take which is happening across spectrum. So let's first look at the difference between race, ethnicity, and nationality. Race is a physical characteristic, ethnicity is a cultural characteristic. nationality is a legal sense of belonging to a specific political nation state. Nation state is a political concept. More often than not, ethnicity can span nation states. In fact, we have a current example of ethnicity spanning nationality. We have the Kuki ethnic tribes in India and the Kuki ethnic tribes in Myanmar or Burma. They are spanning nationality. So skin color is race, language, accent, religion, style of dress is ethnicity, and nationality is citizenship. Race is a person's physical qualities that fit them into distinct groups, share similar physical and behavioral characteristics, are a racial category. People used to think race was a biologically determined. Science has proved that race is a social construct. And in fact, politically, race was defined as superior or inferior based on how one particular set of people wanted to dominate over another set of people. You were significantly biological different. This was often used as a means to oppress people. Though scientifically now, there is no difference in characteristics. Race and ethnicity are separate categories. Ethnicity often depends on both cultural and national context. We have seen that exists within the cultural context of specific national environment. We've also looked at in the previous units that more often than not, with diaspora, with transnationalism, it almost felt like that nation state was ceding space, but we've also realized the nation state is as strong as before. So, for example, someone with an Algerian background who lives in France occupies a specific ethnic role that depends completely on the. Remember, France was a colonizer to Algeria. So, specific ethnic role that depends completely on the history of occupation and colonization between France and Algeria. France was colonizing Algeria. So this Algerian living in France will have that kind of a relation with the French people. In France, the ethnic distinction of Algerian carries specific connotation. But the ethnic role disappears once that Algerian moves to the United States. Because now in America, the Americans do not look at Algerian as one they had colonized. But in America, the person would gain a new and or different ethnicity because the national context changes. Now they fit into the American racial and ethnic categories. So while this person might be Algerian in France, he may be categorized as Muslim in the United States. And in US, they might be treated as a Saudi or Iraqi, like a Middle Eastern, even though Algeria is in Northern Africa. It's something what similarly in Delhi, people of Delhi think that everything south of Vindhyas is a Tamilian. A lot of Delhiites think everything south of Vindhyas is Tamilian, which is not the case. So that's how the ethnicity, is looked at. Again, this is how broad categorization is there. Race, ethnic categories, ethnicity. This is just an example. So, for example, the Indians, Bangladeshis, the Pakistanis, or the Afghanis in the US and the West are not Asians, they are South Asians. Whereas the Chinese, the Japanese, the Filipinos are Asians. So that is the difference between race, broad ethnic categories, and ethnicity. So let's look at the definition of ethnicity, sub-ethnicity, and group identity. Does not have a fixed meaning. First emerged in the 50s in the English language, understood in terms of self-other distinction. It roots in Greek, which was commonly used to describe pagans. Pagans were the ones who did not worship, which would worship nature or acts of nature, things of nature. term coined by Reisman in 53 gained wider use during 60s and 70s. Ethnic group understood as collectivity of people with society that has common ancestors, history, culture, memories, symbolic elements in form of totems, kinship bonds, etc. Sometimes old ethnic groups dissolve, new ones come into existence. So if you see, our identity keeps on moving. Multiplicity of identity is also found in one particular group, has connections with several other groups, can be said to compose of three integrated elements: cognitive, affective, and behavior. What we are able to perceive, what affects us, and how our behavior changes. And inevitably, we see them in a lot of ways. How do we identify with something? I have a chat. What was the term used before? Sanjeev, there was no particular term in terms of, there might be various terms. Why don't you Google and check out what do they used to call it? But a lot, see, remember in academics also, things change as more information is gathered. And typically, terms are coined and then those terms gain currency and become popular. So possibly instead of ethnicity, they might be using tribes because
Yeah,
tribes and ethnic groups are also used interchangeably. Yes, Sanjeev.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
So, the tribal identity and ethnic identity are used pretty interchangeably, though there is a marked difference between tribes are much smaller, ethnicity is much bigger. Again, remember in academics and scholarly, it all depends on who is able to define them or get them to get currency on that particular term.
Okay, sir.
So, three elements: cognitive, affective, and behavior. Sub-ethnic groups are the outcome of boundary dynamics vis-a-vis ethnicity. Sub-ethnic groups are one that form larger ethnic groups. They are formed by immigrants, outcome of socio-cultural changes. Migration also plays a defining role. I have an example to show you how these sub-ethnic groups get formed out of ethnic groups. See, inevitably, human being is in a constant state of movement, both physically and mentally. And every time or any time one comes up with this statement that these people are like this, is a political statement, is a political rhetoric, because no person is the same, no group is the same, no identity is the same. Our identities keep on shifting. For example, look at each one of you. You might be a son or a daughter as an identity. You become a professional, an academician as an identity. You become a husband or a wife as an identity. You become a father or a mother as an identity. Your religion is an identity. Which group you are is an identity. There are multiple identities, and we keep moving with this identity. At the same time, I can be a son, I can be a father, I can be a husband, I can be a person of one particular region, I could be a person of one particular sect. I can move beyond between these identities. Sub-ethnicity refers to the presence of nationalities within an ethnic group and is analytically different from internal ethnicity. So, in fact, ethnicity, sub-ethnicity is also, there is an internal ethnicity and sub-ethnicity. So, internal ethnicity exists among ethnically diverse immigrant groups such as Iranians, who are further divided into Armenians, Baha'is, Jews, Muslims. On the other hand, sub-ethnicity refers to ethnic groups such as Armenians, which are different nationalities. For example, Iranian. So cookies could be Indians, cookies could be Myanmaris or Burmese. This is sub-ethnicity. Whereas Indians could be Hindus, Indians could be Muslims, Indian could be Shaivites, Vaishnavites, Jains, Buddhists, and each group has, and when we keep talking about diaspora and diaspora politics and policies, India and Haryana, for example, I live in the state of Haryana, which is one of the smallest states. It is 250 kilometers from end to end. So if you were to take a car and drive end to end, in 5 hours, you will go from one end to another. And in that 5 hours, every hour, you will see a different dialect, a different way of food, a different way of dressing. These are all in terms of sub-ethnicities. Results from successive influx of an ethnic group from different countries of origin, and many also include native-born offspring of earlier immigrants. So, for example, border state of Haryana is a district called Sirsa. Sirsa, they speak a language called Bagadi. Bagadi is a mixture of Rajasthani and Haryanvi. It's a different language altogether. So obviously, people moved from Rajasthan into Sirsa and from the rest of the Haryana into Sirsa, and then they amalgamated a language called Bagadi. Even though this group share an all-encompassing ethnicity, each group has a different national identity and heritage. Subgroup may also differ in socio-economic characteristics. So there are multiple characteristics. I think that's what makes the human being so interesting to study. Then there is a concept of group identity. Always we have seen how people who seem to be, nice, docile, gentle suddenly become different in terms of group dynamics because there's a group identity which comes in. Very important in the study of any discipline of social science. Group is defined as a collection of individuals. Groupness, named by Brubaker, is a contingent identification with a group. It's a dynamic process. Identity is both a category of practice and a category of analysis. How do we practice and how do we analyze this? So there is a group identity. And that's what makes sociology pretty confusing because there are so many concepts which, work in tandem. So social identity theory emphasizes that people tend to classify themselves into social groups. Classification used to follow provides individual a way to define. More often than not, whenever somebody asks the question, who are you? You would like to define yourself in terms of either what is your profession or what is your designation. Because you are able to identify with a certain characteristics of that definition. I am an academician. I'm an engineer. I'm a housewife. I'm a homemaker. These are categorization which we'd like to do. Social classification provides a mechanism to define himself, herself in a social environment they live in. So more often than not, you are a business person or you're an entrepreneur. So this is the way, and group identity gives us a feeling of comfort because we are a part of the group. Nobody wants to be seen as a loner because that's how a social animal thing works. Way to define others and a way to define themselves. As a category of practice, it is used by lay actors in some, not all, everyday setting to make sense of themselves and their activities. What are you doing? More often than not, if you're not able to answer this question, you're very uncomfortable. Or you ask somebody, what do you do? And that person says nothing. Now you do not know how to take this conversation further. But if the other person says he or she's an engineer or he or she is working with NGO sector, you are then able to categorize that person and take that conversation forward. What they share with and how they differ from others. So us versus others. It is also used by political entrepreneurs to persuade people to understand themselves. We are not like this. They are like this. Their interest. So politicians use this to do identity politics. Different from others to organize and justify collective action along certain lines. So that's how the group identity functions. Ethnicity and sub-ethnicity are also markers of group identity. Important attribute of ethnic and sub-identity based on we and the other binary prototype feature as markers of a particular group. So these are also particular group identities. Identity is an ascribed status and is maintained through its surface markers. So more often than not, our identity is defined by surface markers, dressing pattern, language, physical features. Today, the food we eat, Whether I eat a vegan meal, a vegetarian meal, a non-vegetarian meal is also an identity marker today. Ritual calendars, specific taboos, medical and economic patterns. Debate is going on among scholars regarding relevance of ethnicity and sub-ethnicity. It is the same debate whether nation state is important or is not important, but we have seen in the earlier units that nation state still is a very important feature. Identified language, religion, tribal traits, descent as markers of ethnic identities. Features define a group as we and distinguish them with others. So inevitably, human being functions as we and others, the binary function. And that is why politicians are able to very easily, take advantage of this division into doing identity politics. Gellner argued that owing to the homogenizing tendencies of industrialization and nationalism, there are very few spaces left for sub-national identities. So again, there is this set of scholars who say that ethnicity is not there or sub-ethnicity is no longer prevalent. For example, there was a whole lot of debate which happened some time back which said caste does not function, caste is an ancient concept. And then we realize the fact that even people who have migrated from India into US and the Western countries carry their caste along or their caste markers along. Moreover, globalization has also undermined the importance of ethnic identities, and we will see how ethnicity or ethnic identity is going strong. So as I keep telling you, there is this negotiation between movement and nationality in terms of and the more biggest irony is America, where everybody is a migrant and yet they are shouting and screaming against immigrants, and also because they need immigrants, otherwise their country will not run. So this negotiation is continuously going on. Similarly, scholars like Miller argue that in post-industrial society and immigration states, ethnic identity play a very crucial role in ensuring their participation in the mainstream. So there are again two set of scholars. One says that no, it is not there, whereas the second says it is there definitely. Major approaches to ethnicity, including two approaches, primordial and instrumental. Primordial is which came first, and instrumentalist is social, political, and cultural resources for different interest and status growth, the socially constructed. The primordial says it was always there right from the origin of humankind, whereas the instrumentalist states it's a social construct. And then, of course, there are these three things: Barth's transactionalism. Ethnic groups are a unit of ascription in the sense you ascribe to an ethnic group. Social boundaries are symbolic border guards. Remember, at the end of the day, ethnicity is about we versus others. And the we is because the group is protecting themselves against the others. Remember, there is a politics at play. So there is the Barth's transactionalism. There is the Horowitz social psychological approach, uses group psychology and emphasizes that collective stereotypes work in terms of kinship. See, the whole concept of, the way the society developed and the society is structured, more often than not, all those taboos which have come in, the myths which have come in, was trying to protect we against the others. And then there's the Armstrong and Smith's ethno-symbolic approach. The SLM talks about it, so I kind of introduced it out here. If you want to read more about it, you can read it, you can Google it and read it. Now let's look at the sublinkages, interlinkages between ethnicity, sub-ethnicity, and diaspora. Several disagreements regarding definition and relevance of ethnicity. Ethnicity continues to influence the domestic as well as foreign policies of countries of the world. So think about the fact that irrespective of the fact that, let's look at this particular Kuki versus Methi in Manipur. These are, ethnic identities. Even though Kukis are there, they are Indians. And there are a set of Kukis who are Myanmaris or Burmese. Now, if these people were to go and settle in, let's say, the US or Western countries, they will carry their culture along with them. And more often than not, the Indian cookies will possibly make linkages with, and I wouldn't be surprised if cookies and Maitris outside Manipur are connected with each other, especially in a foreign country as a diaspora. They would be talking because they share a common culture. They might have, an ethnic sub differences, but more often than not, it's like Indians and Pakistanis in the West are the best of friends in terms of bondages because they are South Asians. The countries and the citizens out there look at them as South Asians, and they have this wonderful bond. Ethnicity continues to influence domestic as well as foreign policies of countries are now politically interpreted, and conflicts are also a reality today. And now the conflicts out here because now we transact transnationalism. Information is traveling from home to host and host to home, and each is influencing each other. So you will see a lot of non-resident Indians coming out and speaking about why Indians should not do this, and Indians sitting out in India will, react and say, you guys are sitting outside. Why are you giving us advice as to how should we live? In fact, Indians in India are much more progressive than Indians sitting in the West because they seem to have carried the culture which was in India in the 50s or the 60s. It's a very interesting way how things move. In international politics, ethnic groups have played a crucial role. Ethnic identity cannot be confined to the boundaries of a sovereign nation state. Diaspora has been instrumental in socio-economic development of home country. At the same time, ethnic conflicts have gradually eroded the relevance of state boundaries. So, at the same time, the state boundaries have been eroded, but at the same time, these ethnic identities continue to be strong, like the caste identities, like the religious identities, and all of them interplay with each other. Ethnic conflicts have led to genocide. For example, the Hutu Tutsi conflict in Rwanda, for example, the Chechnya conflict in Russia, the Tamil separatist conflict in Sri Lanka, separate wars in Sudan, one against southern Christians, another in Darfur, and the Kurdish agency in Turkey. Because inevitably at the bottom of any conflict is politics, is power, where one set of group does not want to yield power to the other group. So there is this paper on diaspora politics, ethnic linkage, foreign policy and security in Eurasia by Charles King and Neil J. Melvin, and a created relationship between dispersed ethnic groups, the state in which they live, host states, and the actions of government that might make some historical or cultural claim to represent the kin state, the home states. So more often than not, for example, Kurds are spread over Syria, Turkey, Iraq. They don't have a country of their own. And for example, in Turkey, the Turkish government is absolutely against the Kurdish as a separate entity. They don't believe that Kurdish is an ethnic group. They believe that Kurds are a part of Turks, and there is this conflict when Kurds are looking at independence from the and want to create a state. So inevitably, Kurds who are diaspora, let's say in the Western countries, in the Western Europe, and there is this active, skirmishes which happens between native Turks and Kurds. Many scholars have argued transborder ethnic ties can or may increase the insecurity of state, which is what is happening in Manipur. For example, the majority Methi community looks at this Kuki community with suspicion because they feel there's a lot of transborder movement of Kukis from Myanmar. And, these insecurities, absence of, communication, identity politics, then, exacerbate, conflict states. In general, diaspora politics of these three states, hang on. So this is the Eurasia secret. Diaspora politics of these states have relatively, these three states are Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. Portray themselves as ethnic homelands and continue to reach out to co-ethnics living abroad, be considered destabilizing or preclude to ethnic conflict. For example, Azeris in Azerbaijan and Iran, Uzbeks in Uzbekistan, parts of Central Asia, Uyghurs in China, the relation with Muslim Turkish population in Central. And if you see in each country, there are these various groups. For example, Han Chinese are the predominant groups in China. More often than not, when we understand China, we think everybody is a Chinese. That's not the case. Han Chinese are the dominant ethnic group in China. There are other groups. For example, Uyghurs are, they have a relation with Muslim Turkish population. They are Muslims. They are being persecuted. Each country has this set of ethnic groups. Then there are in Eurasia, three large archetypical diasporic people, the Jews, Armenians, and the Roma. Interlinkages between ethnicity and diaspora. For example, Jews lobby in US has always portrayed its allegiance to Israel. Then what happened during World War I? Ethnic Americans became increasingly preoccupied with the native countries. Remember, America is nothing but a nation of immigrants from various countries. So when the World War happened and Woodrow Wilson proclamation of self-determination, the Poles, the Slovaks, the Ukrainians, the Lithuanians, the Armenians all reached out to augment their own community back home. For example, today, one of the biggest Armenian representatives are the Kardashians. Kardashians are from Armenia. They all lobbied vigorously for American recognition, post-war independence. North American Sikhs campaigned for independent Sikh country, Palestinian and Arab Americans for Palestinians. So all these groups, diasporic groups, then lobby for the home country. And that is why the diaspora becomes a very important group when the home country needs to put out its policy or they need diaspora help to lobby in the host country. So I picked up this article from the Guardian, small country but big nation, about the Armenian genocide, how Armenians and the Turks, there is this, there are two separate groups. Armenians continue to bring out about the army. And the interesting part is the Armenian genocide happened during the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire is over. There is no Ottoman Empire. The only thing is that Ottoman Empire was centered at Istanbul or Turkey, and somehow that history continues to remain. That's the only continuity. Otherwise, this genocide left about 1 million to 1.5 million dead. So this is a sore point between Armenia and Turkey. Okay, let's sum up. So group identity is individual consciousness. He belongs to certain groups, feel emotionally attached. Markers of the group are features on the basis of that people define the position of social group. Markers are not fixed, keep on changing with passage of time. Race and ethnicity exists within cultural context or specific national environment. Race and ethnicity different within country. And they even differ within countries. Ethnic group is understood as collectivity of people within a society, common ancestors, history, culture, memories. Sub-ethnic groups are formed either by immigrants or their outcome of social cultural changes within an ethnic group over a period of time. Several disagreements regarding definition and relevance of ethnicity and sub-ethnicity. Ethnicity and sub-ethnicity continues to influence. So, for example, the Indians in America might be a single group, but then they will divide into Tamil Indians, Telugu Indians, Punjabi Indians, Gujarati Indians, and so on and so forth. Among them, they will further, get subdivided into, based on religion or based on the area from where they come. Think about the fact in India, Andhra Pradesh itself got split between Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, even though they speak a common language. All these divisions continue to happen. There are two references that I picked up: ethnicity and nationalism, theory and comparison, and Brubaker's Rogers, ethnicity within groups. Okay, so I have reached the end. Let me stop sharing and let me start my video. Hey, come on. What happened to my video? Hi, guys. Any questions? Any questions? Anything that you want to add?
Sir,
Yes,
sir,
Sanjeev. Yes, Sanjeev.
sir, whether caste comes under ethnicity or sub-ethnicity, though it is a different subject, I think so. But still, it can
What comes under ethnicity, sub-ethnicity?
caste.
Caste. Caste would come as ethnicity.
Achha, it would come as ethnicity.
Absolutely. Then there will be sub-ethnicities in terms of different castes, or you can it again again is determined as to how you define. Because if you see in each caste, the castes are further subdivided into jatis and gotras.
Yes.
So caste. So if you were to look at India, India would be the Hindus, India would be the Muslims, India would be the Buddhists, the Sikhs, the Christians, the Jains. Then you subdivide them. Even among Hindus, you will have the Shaivites, the
Yes.
Vaishnavites. There would be all these sects which come in. So these become a subcategory on their own.
So caste also comes under ethnicity.
You could largely define under ethnicity because they have, say, for example, a particular caste would have a common customs in terms of food habits, in terms of dressing, in terms of where they came from.
Sir.
So, Sanjeev, it would be primarily, it's a cultural construct. So, any particular group of people who would have which would have a common culture would be defined as an ethnic group.
Ethnicity. Okay. Got it.
Any other question, if anybody wants to ask? I have, for once, I have done in good. I have got 15 minutes. If there is any question, you want to share something. For example, Jyoti was giving the story about when she was in Europe. Jyoti, you were saying, or Dev Pragya was saying about the Bindi as a cultural construct. They were in Europe, and the Bindi is a cultural construct for my. Are you able to hear my voice? Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
and
Now it
now
is
it's
clear.
yeah,
Okay. It
now it's
suddenly shows my internet was unstable. Somebody of you, Jyoti or Dev Pragya, was telling the story about when you were in
so
Europe. Or...
yeah. So I was telling this story
Okay, okay,
that
okay.
people admit me through my bindi and my attire that you are from India.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's
So
I
that's a
can say
cultural,
it's an
that's a
yeah.
cultural marker. That's a cultural marker. And that cultural marker is based on how other perceives you. So those people, the European construct looks at a bindi as an Indian cultural marker.
Yeah, and even when I met some sick person, so
Hmm.
they have something else. So it's again a difference between me and her.
Absolutely,
That
absolutely.
yeah,
For example, in the US, the Americans are they easily mistake Sikhs for Arabs because they understand the headdress as a marker of Arabs. As I gave you the example of an Algerian in America, the Americans, their understanding of Af things beyond America is very limited. So they would put everything in terms of Middle East.
Sir.
Yes, Sanjeev.
Sir, in one of the slides, it was mentioned that even globalization would undermine ethnicity. In one, can you please explain a little bit?
So, Sanjeev, it's something like this. Uh, Today, let's say when we look at Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, or Kolkata as metropolitan cities, we somehow tend to look at, and when we look around us, basically in our sphere of influence, we tend to look at, say, for example, we are doing a job in a corporate sector or in a particular organization. more often than not, we are constrained in terms of our job. We do not look at other things. And we kind of think that, for example, caste does not exist. Caste is a typical traditional concept. Caste would be typically or in villages or in traditional societies, but here it's a metropolitan city. There is a modern way of transportation. When you go in a bus or a metro, you do not look at
Yes.
who's standing next to you, what caste is he. In a lot of marriages, more often than not, we tend to look at love marriage. We do not tend to ask so somehow we tend to understand the fact that in metropolitan cities, caste is not a factor. Similarly, when we look at the world today, we look at internet, we look at global linkages, we look at, within a day's notice, if you have a visa, you can fly to US for business, you have multinationals. So more often than not, this old concepts of ethnicity, caste, and all these things do not function. Now, the interesting part is, irrespective of whatever the means may be in terms of faster transport, faster connectivity, there is always this identity factor that works in terms of my identity and my group identity. So, and this becomes prevalent once you start deep diving into how people react, how do they work. For example, in the US, there was this big study done on the impact of caste and how the upper caste are still able to browbeat students from the lower caste in academic institutions.
Yes.
So there are these two ways of arguing things. One, a set of scholars based on certain research. Remember, research also in an academic pursuit is based on, let's say I go and interview 10 people and I ask this question, and how the question is framed and how the response happens and how diverse is this group. I go and ask a person, do you think caste is valid today? More often, social sciences and human, in which the question is asked, can give you a wrong reply.
Yes.
And then the scholar mistakenly assumes the fact that caste does not work. Like, for example, it's showing my internet. Can you hear my voice?
Yes. Yes.
So a lot of people think that because of globalization and transnationalism, nation does not exist or nation is not important. But nation is still very important because you need to get a passport and a visa. And that only a national government does it. So irrespective of the advances in technology and the advances in connection, the way human beings connect to each other is sometimes the same as what was the traditional human being. For example, look at the fact today with technology, we are having apps, dating apps by which I can reach out to a person of opposite sex. But I would still need to meet to develop some amount of trust. So human being has not changed. Human group dynamics has not changed. The way human psychology works has not changed. Sanjeev?
Sir.
Okay. For globalization influence from India, we can consider the yoga practice and Ayurvedic medicine practice. Absolutely. Rishika, today, the way globalization functions is we continuously give out parts of our culture to the world and we pick up parts of the world culture onto us. What is ours and what is from outside typically get influenced by each other. Rishika? Any other question? Ishan Mukam is also joining us. Any other question? Okay, there's one more message which has come. Okay, fine. That's perfectly fine.
Uh,
So, more often than not, we were talking about the. Yes, somebody wanted to say something?
yes, sir. This is Jyoti.
Jyoti,
Sir,
go ahead.
my one friend, she is in US and she wants to do some research on, like, because the Indians who were living over there, how they teach all those things to their child, like the Indian cultures, like namaste and greeting, saying namaste or something else. So she is going to perform this research over there, but she's not giving the name ethnicity. I mean, because she is a psychologist, so she wants to understand the
Correct.
cultural concept of that religious thing, that how they say you have to remember that you are an Indian,
So
but you
more
are
of
living in.
so more often than not, in fact, the diaspora goes through this tremendous conflict, whether they are Americans or they are Indians. All diasporas came from India and still has those. Remember, human being has this concept of remembrances. We tend to connect with those remembrances. The reason why people like to share their old photographs on social media. What's the need? Whom are you trying to show this? But you are trying to remember things. So remembrance has a role in the identity of human beings. It's not just Indians across the world. So people would like to continue with that particular thing. And more often than not, a lot of these Indians remember India of the 50s and 60s. And unfortunately for them, India has moved and Indians have moved. So today, we are so much in tune with the global culture, but those guys are got stuck into that India of 50s and 60s. And now the next generation is going through this conflict because the older Indians are trying to teach the younger American Indians, because those second generation have been born in America. Those guys do not want, some of them do not want any connection with India because it embarrasses them, because the predominant culture is American. But they are being forced to go through this Indian culture and then they become confused. It's actually a psychologically a tremendous pressure on this second generation. Jyoti, Sanjeev wants to. Hello, Shanmugam. He switched on his camera.
Sir,
Jyoti, Sanjeev wants to know the question. What was the question? This
question in the
research.
sense, what is the research actually?
Ha,
So
Jyoti, what was?
I'm just searching for that, and she's saying uh, handing down family heritage. Yeah,
Handing down family heritage, Sanjeev.
yeah,
Handing down family identities,
Family
yeah,
heritage.
family
yeah.
heritage.
Correct. Now, heritage
So
also is a very, unless I define it, more often than not, it will be handing down the family culture,
uh,
because heritage is much more than culture.
So again, with the globalization, that heritage would be impacted, sir.
Oh, listen, Sanjeev, the beauty of human being is we are constantly changing and we constantly fight to remain the same.
Sir.
All of us are
Oh,
changing. All
acha,
of us are
both
changing.
actions,
Right?
both at this.
Think about it. Think about it. Look at how you have moved in terms of your dressing styles. So, for example, a traditional Indian dress was a dhoti, but try and wear a dhoti and climb on a bus. More often
No.
than not, your dhoti will get left behind. It's not
Yes, sir.
practical. It's not
Yes,
practical. So, you change your dressing styles based on practicality.
sir.
So inevitably, we constantly are changing and constantly are negotiating to remain the same because we are comfortable with remaining the same.
Oh, and at the same time, we are trying to change also.
No, we are not trying. We have to change because
Oh,
that's, think about the fact. Now, can you stay without a mobile phone?
no.
So it is forced upon us. So there are various ways those changes are being brought upon us. So, and this is not an individual, this is the concept of communities, of groups. constantly changing and remaining the same. And then a lot of this change. So in sociology, there was a sociologist by the name of M.N. Srinivasan who brings in a concept of Sanskritization and Westernization. There are two concepts. So more often than not, the lower caste, through process of Sanskritizations, try to move into the higher caste because of the advantages accruing to the higher caste. For those people who do not go through Sanskritization, go through Westernization to try and improve their lot. And similarly, the concept of, changing religions, picking up Buddhism, essentially everybody tries to improve their lot in terms of their placement in a social order. Sanjeev?
Yes, sir. Got it.
That's basic sociology.
Sir.
So we are changing at the same time.
Sir,
and sorry, boliyo Jyoti.
yeah,
Bolo Jyoti.
sir, maybe we can say that like we have to upgrade ourselves according to the situation. That's
Which
why
is-
now,
which-
yeah, because of this, we have, like, I have seen the lower class people, they just say, no, I'm not from that group. Now I'm from that group because I'm practicing, which is practiced by that group.
Which is called
gradually-
Sanskritization. Jyoti, that's called
that is called-
Sanskritization.
Yeah.
So,
And-
but think about the fact in the whole process of migration and becoming diaspora, the whole concept of migration is to try and improve a lot by moving. Sanjeev, Jyoti?
Sir.
So the people migrate to try and improve. Nobody wants to move if they are in a particular good place.
Yes.
Yes, Jyoti. Sorry, I cut you when you were speaking.
No, sir, it's okay because I say one more thing. I belong from Brahmin community and we don't have to have this meat and all the things. But my one brother, he's working with the marine services. So it's like he said, Didi, it's essential. Like if I have to survive, I have to take something like that.
Absolutely.
But when he came back to at our place, he used to do whatever we used to do. So he is actually changing his habits according to his situation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a
Okay.
yeah.
If there is no other
So,
question,
adapting
Sanjeev.
oneself to the changes.
Yes, Sanjeev, we always go through. See, listen, human beings, like all animals, keep adapting. And then there is that identity which comes at play, individual identity, group identity, there's a social order, all these, there is an underlying politics which come at play. Because if you do not align yourself to a group, more often than not, you are left out. Nobody wants to be left out. So there are multiple dynamics at play. And today the same dynamic comes in a diaspora. And then how geopolitics, the diaspora plays a role in the geopolitics, how ethnicity comes in, nationality comes in, and so on and so forth.
Sir.
Yeah, okay. Let me ask one question, sir.
Please.
To my little understanding, ethnic identity means it's a socially construct, and then ethnicity comes, it's a politically construct. So it has a different connotation. So while defining diaspora, which one is more preferable? This ethnic, shall we use the distinct ethnic identity or ethnicity?
Okay, so more often than not, it's ethnicity, and the ethnicity has an ethnic identity.
But
See, don't look at it politically. Let's not look at it politically. Let's look at academically. Academically, an ethnicity has an ethnic identity related with it. That identity is based on we versus others.
Thank you.
Got it?
So ethnicity and ethnic.
They are of a particular identity. But I would not go by the political definition. I would go by the academic definition. So there is an ethnic group. The ethnic group's identity is based on others. Jitin?
From others in the sense from the same group.
From others. See, inevitably, Sanjeev, how would, let's say, the group of, recently I've been to, just a minute, Kangat is writing something, I've been to Gaya, I was amazed to see people from Nepal, UP, Andhra, Karnataka, etc. visiting Vishnupal temple for performing. Kangat, but that's, that is, a religious construct which spans ethnic groups. That's where somewhere down the line, there is, the political identity overcoming, and it's not just a political identity. There are a lot of, specific social markers which spans ethnic groups. For example, as I said, a Kuki Manipuri would call himself an Indian, whereas a Kuki Burmese will call himself a Myanmarese. But they are both cookies having specific cultural parameters. And Sanjeev, more often than not, each group, the concept of group is, the definition of a particular group is these set of people have a common characteristics which are
Yes.
marked difference from some other group.
Yes.
So ethnic group always distinguish them that we are from this, but we are Nepalese because we believe in doing this thing. We are Indians, or we are Hindus, or we are Christians because we have this particular characteristics. It's a social construct.
So, in other words, can we say that birds of same feathers?
Sorry?
In other words, we can take the example of birds of same feathers.
Birds of same feather. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Birds of same feather gather together.
Yes.
That's what a group is all about. Same
Yes,
as
sir.
Indian Bengalis and Bangladeshi. So inevitably, the Indian Bengalis and Bangladeshis speak the same Bengali language, but there's a difference in dialect. Their culture also remains the same in the sense Tagore is predominant in East Bengal as well as West Bengal. East Bengal is Bangladesh. But more often than not, there's a national identity by which they say they are Bangladeshis, and the West Bengal people say they are Indians. So there will be different markers in terms of what do they eat, what fish do they eat. For example, Durga Puja, both celebrate. So there are certain things which are constant, and yet there are separate markers. We are from West Bengal, India. They are from East Bengal, Bangladeshis. Rishika, you're absolutely right.
But that means birds of the same feather means it's a homogeneous character. But on the other if it is say if we could put unity in diversity is different with the birds of the same feather. So
Don't
Yes.
take it literally. Birds of the same
Yes.
feather, don't take it literally. But when I say birds of the same feather, means culturally they are similar.
Yes.
Jiten?
That's a good point added by Noctum brothers. What is he? His name is some Noctum.
I am reading Jiten, so I'm calling him Jiten.
Yeah,
Jiten.
Nongthomam is my surname.
Jiten is your surname.
And Nongthomam is my surname. Jiten is my name.
Jiten is his name, Sanjeev. So I was calling him right. Jiten is his name. So Jiten, don't take it literally as birds of feather. It is a social construct. Ethnicity is a social construct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. So let's call it a day. Have a nice weekend and a nice week ahead. We will meet again next Saturday at 3 p.m. And we'll take the next marker of socio-cultural construct. I think it's religion. We'll look at religion as a marker. Remember, once we are able to understand this concept of identities, identity, nationality, globalization, transnationalism, if these four concepts become clear, and the interplay which happens between, more often than not, the whole concept of migration, transnationalism, and diaspora becomes much more clear.
Sir.
Okay. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, guys. Bye.